creating handrails with the handrail tool can be really handy and helpful and make quick work of things. However, there's one caveat. Creating handrails with angles is not exactly advised or recommended because CADWorx doesn't handle angles all that well, like it does with pipes. But if you're doing pipe handrails, I highly recommend the handrail tool. So I'm going to go over the explanation of how the handrail tool works and each one of the tabs. Well, there's only 2 tabs and everything in them. But then also show you the differences between an angle handrail and a pipe handrail. So what you're looking at here is the dimensions for your handrail setup. This is a lot less than what you saw in the ladder tool. And what you have here is 4 dimensions. You've got your distance for your post below the platform. This is if you're doing a side-mounted ladder. You can choose how far you want that post to extend down. If you're doing a top-mounted ladder, you'll have this set to 0. You can also choose your platform offset distance. Again, this is how, when you insert your ladder, there's a work line, and this is how far away from that work line it's being set. And there's different ways that you can handle this, but I'm going to show you the way that I handle this. We're going to set that to 0 for right now. You also have your start and end offset. This is like if you have a cantilever that you want to put. The thing is, some handrails do have a cantilever, but CADWorx does not draw the extra half post that's supposed to be there. Or sometimes a full post that's not actually bolted to the side. It doesn't draw that. It just cantilevers the extra mid rail and top rail and toe plate. So I wouldn't recommend putting a start and end offset. I leave those at 0. Your max post spacing is whatever if you follow PIP or whatever your company standard is. In this case, I'm just going to say 6 feet. I think some companies go up to 8 feet, but I'm going to say 6 feet. Next, we have our rails. So the thing with handrails is I have multiple profiles, and I recommend having multiple profiles because if you're using the handrail tool, you're going to get in situations where you're going to have a handrail that has no top rail, or a handrail that has no mid rail because you have a pipe coming through it or some other obstruction, or you have no toe rail or toe plate, or you have no toe plate or mid rail. You can choose which rails you want to be part of your handrail here. Right now I have 3. I've got one at 0 inches, one at 9 inches, 1'9", and one at 3'6". And we're going to see how the dimensions can affect each one of these things. Usually this is set to the top, so I'll set that first rail with it being a toe plate. Let's say I'm basing this off of 1 1/4 inch grading, right? 1 1/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the top of that rail at, let's see if I have a 1/4 inch gap above that. I'm going to set it at 5.5 inches, right? It's because we've got 1 1/4 grading with a 1/4 inch gap. That's 1.5 inches plus a 4 inch toe plate. So I'm going to put this at 5.5 inches. And right off the top of my head, this next distance is from the bottom to the start of your platform to your mid rail, and then from the start of your platform to your top rail. So the top rail, if I'm using, I want to be 3'6" above my walking surface. So if I'm using 1 1/4 grading, I want the top of it to be at 3'7" 1/4. And honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head. We'll find out in a second here whether this dimension is to the center or whether it's to the top. So we want to be from the steel. We want to be 3'7" 1/4 to the top. If we're using 1 1/4 grading. So I'm going to say 3'7" 1/4. Okay. And that way, it's either going to be the center or the top. We'll find out in a second. Our mid rail, I believe, is supposed to be halfway in between. For now, I'm going to leave it. I don't have my calculator with me to determine the half width, but we'll determine that in a second. We'll leave it at 1'9" for now. I'm sure it's not going to be that. And so we're going to do a side mount, and we're going to put it on the outside edge. And all these settings are fine the way they are now. Over here in sizes is where we get to choose what type of members that we're going to use. As far as your top rail, your intermediate rail, your bottom rail, and your post. So your top rail, intermediate rail, and post should all be the same size. This one's using 2 by 2 1/4. I think I'm used to using 2.5 by 2.5 by quarter. This is 2.5 by 2. Here's 2.5 by 2.5 by quarter. So I'm going to use those sizes. From what I remember off the top of my head, I've been using post rails for the past 2 years. So it's been a little while since I've been using angle. All right, and our bottom rail is just going to be a flat bar, 4 inches by 1/4 inch. Within these, you can adjust specific information such as the rotation angle, the X and Y offset. These are defaults that are already set up. Okay, had this been set at 0, the angle would look like this, and it's not. It's supposed to be towed downward. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. So I'm going to save this as just angle side mount. Am I not saving? Oh, save as. I'm sorry. I went to browse like I'm looking for one. Let's go to angle side mount. And so we have it up here, angle side mount.rail. And this is an actual profile that we've saved now. So I'm going to have to cancel this right now, though, because I don't have a line ready to go. Now, I can pick points. Let's just pick one side. I can pick points like this, the outside edge of this platform. All right, and that's it. Now I want you to pick a point away from the platform, away. This determines basically which way it's going, which side of this work line is it going to put the handrail. I want to pick away this way, and it generates the handrail based on those 2 points. Now you'll notice a couple things wrong. Let's put this in conceptual. First thing that's wrong is this post is facing the wrong direction. Second thing you'll notice is that it's also, actually no, it's right on the money. So let's try this again. This is why I really don't use angle that much, because you have to make sure you get your orientations just right. So, oops, accident. Another method I want to show you, which since we're going to have to redo this, is by drawing a line, which is my more preferred method, and I'll show you why it's my preferred method in a second. So let's go and select this line, pick away from this platform, and I believe it's getting it backwards. So if I go inwards toward the platform, now it kind of gets it right in a way, but look at how everything's kind of jacked up. This is where you have to like play around with it a lot, because you have to tweak it. This is all by default, by the way. I mean, you feel like CADWorx should have this stuff already set up for its base profile, but it doesn't. You have to go into your sizes. You have to go in here, and this is set at 90. It probably needs to be set at 180. The posts probably need to be set at 90, and they're all at 180. So it takes tweaking, and I'm going to save this. And now we can select the line again and see if we got it. Now our posts are looking better, and so is our top rail, but our mid rail's all jacked up. So let's see if we can adjust our mid rail. We're going to double click this handrail to edit it. Let's change our mid rail to 180. Remember previously it was at 90. Now it's looking better. It's got a 1/4 inch offset. But it stops right here at the end, and this post continues because they're all turned the same direction. One thing you don't have control over is taking some of these posts and pointing them inward. You'll also know that the posts are not evenly spaced out. You don't have control over that. What it's doing is it's taking that maximum 6-foot dimension and putting a post, and then adding another post at the end of my line. You're going to have to deal with things like that as far as post location. All right, so why do I like using lines? Well, because what I can do is make a polyline and set that polyline up to go all the way around my platform. Now I can select that line and again pick away from it. And it's nice because I've made quick work of the handrail all the way around. I still have some goofy things going on, like having this post here, having this post here. You'll also notice unrealistically there are always posts at the basically wherever there's a line segment. So since I start a new line segment on the corner, I have posts on the corner. There will not be posts on the corner. if you've seen handrail details, you'll notice that the post will be set back here, maybe set back over here, but never on the corner unless you're welding to the top. So there might be some unrealistic, visuals going on here. But if you're just looking for something quick and fast and easy to put in, there's a way to do that. You can also take this and maybe give it, like if you were putting a ladder here, you can offset this 12 inches and maybe add an extension here and an extension here. And now we've got, let's see here, everything we need to enclose this platform. And I can put my ladder here and all that stuff. And see, look, you can see like that. It's the reason it didn't adjust the center, because even though I modified it last time to 180, I did not save it. So I'm going to save as, hit OK. So let's do this. And let's do that handrail tool again and select line now that I've saved it. And there, now it's facing outward like it should. But like I said, because all the posts are the same orientation, you get situations like this where it looks great on this end, but it's not flipped on this end. And there's no way to modify that because all the posts carry the same orientation, because that orientation is set up here. You'll also notice that the top and mid rail come out 1/4 of an inch, which is great. That's great because that's kind of how it would be. You would have this on top of your post. So the thickness is 1/4 inch. You'd have it on top of the post. There's that 1/4 inch thickness. In order to get that to work, the profile has a 1/4 inch offset. So you take a look at your top and your intermediate rail, and you've got this 1/4 inch offset in the X direction, which you can see is right here, X direction. We've offset it minus 1/4 of an inch, and it pulls it out that 1/4 of an inch. Same thing here, except we're also doing it 1/4 inch in the Y axis because we're trying to put the top post on top. All right, now time for that measurement. Now we put it at 3'7" and 1/4. For angle, it should be on top, but we do have a center line set right here. So let's give it a dimension. Let's measure from here down to here, and we're at 3'7½". And we set this at 3'7" and 1/4. The reason you're probably seeing that 3'7½" is basically because of this top rail getting a 1/4 inch offset. Had it not gotten that 1/4 inch Y offset, it gets brought down 1/4 of an inch, and you'll see the post kind of sticking through because it's now this is in the same plane, right? And so now when we measure, we will get that 3'7" and 1/4. Right, but because we had that 3'7" and 1/4, because we had that 1/4 inch offset in the Y-axis for this top post, it pushes it up 1/4, and we get that extra 1/4 inch added to it. So, all right, so there's that. Now let's look at pipes. Now pipes to me are a little easier to work with, and this is why I prefer using handrail tool with pipes. Unfortunately, angle doesn't work that well, but if you're okay with kind of how angle looks and you just rather use it because it's faster, that's fine. But if you need a little bit of accuracy, I'd say build your handrails manually still. All right, so for pipe, all you're going to do is the same thing. You're just going to change your sizes. So you'll just change this to pipe, and I usually go with, I went to flat bar. Pipe, I go with standard 1.5". And again, pipe, standard 1.5". And same thing with my post. Pipe, standard 1.5". And as far as your details, make sure you remove all of any of the offsets with pipe. You don't need offsets. You don't need rotations. You don't need mirroring like you had in the other one. 0, 0, and no mirroring because it's symmetrical. You don't need any kind of offset for the pipe. That's the beauty of pipe, is that it is symmetrical. 0. Now, I will say this much. You probably are going to need an offset for your flat bar, because when we do this, by default, what's going to happen is it's going to put that flat bar in the center of your pipe. So we're going to say pipe side mount. We're going to select our lines. And you can see what's happening here. Like I said, it's got that toe plate coming into the center of the pipe and not offset to the inside. We want to offset that to the inside by 15/16 of an inch, which is half the distance of this pipe, of a 1.5 inch pipe. I know it's not 0.75. It's actually 15/16. So we're going to take this and we're going to do the X offset. We're going to try 15/16 and see if we can get that to go in the right direction. Instead of going outward, we want it to come inward. And we went the wrong direction. Sometimes it is a little bit of trial and error. So let's put a negative here and see if we can get that going. Great. Looks like we're just about there. The only thing now is that we need a little bit more tweaking because, oops, get rid of this. Do visual style. What it's doing is it's going to the center. So if you look, see if we can make sense of this. Let me pull this off to the side and go to the top. It's taking that toe plate here, and see, here's the outside edge, and I need this edge right here to match up with the edge of this, like here. You can see it over here on this one. It shouldn't be overlapping. That's because it's taking the center line of the toe plate and it's matching it up with the edge. So we have to offset that distance, that 1/8 distance. So we offset it 15/16 already. We need to go another 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to take that, excuse me, an additional, 2/16 of an inch. So we're at 1 1/16. So let's go ahead and modify and try minus 1 1/16 and see if we can get that thing right on the money. And there's the outside edge. I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it lines up with it now. So we're good. So what I want to do is I want to just save as these settings and go pipe side mount, say yes, hit OK. And then let's try this again. Oops, select line. I hit the wrong thing. Okay, and there we are. That's our pipe handrail. That's right. So the thing is, it's our pipe handrail, but it's mounted in the center of the pipe. That's why it's interfering with the steel. Because what's happening is I have not given an offset to the entire handrail. That offset needs to be, well, whatever I need it to be. So whatever the clearance is. So if I want to have like my toe plate to be lined up with the edge, it's going to be that 1 1/16. Or if I don't need it lined up with the edge, it'll be minus 15/16. So let's try minus, and it really, truthfully, it depends on how the detailer's doing it. A lot of times they'll put the post right up against the edge of the steel, or they'll put it, a 1/4 of an inch off. So in this case, I'm going to put it right up against the steel and say minus 15/16. And we went the wrong direction again. So this time we're going to go positive 15/16. And there we go. And if you look, you can see, in fact, I'll just turn this to a 2D and we'll look at it from the right. Or front. Front is fine. And see, here's my beam. And here it is lined up almost. CADWorx is a little kind of funky, and you'll see some small overlaps like this sometimes, even though we expect it to be the way it is, like lined up, sometimes it's not. But we got close enough. So the post is now lined up with the edge of the platform. You can give it a bigger gap if you want. Again, if you want that extra 1/4 inch, turn that to 1 3/16. And you get a little bit more of a gap if you want that gap. Whatever you need, you put that there. If you want this to be top mount, like skids, for example, or if you're doing it bolted to the top of the skid, you want to set this to 0. So let's do this. Let's do a save as and call this pipe top mount. With the 0 offset. Okay? And what I'm going to do is take this here And let's put one here so I can draw a new polyline. So we're going to draw it here. First thing I need to do is reset my UCS. So we're going to draw here to here. And I want this thing to be centered on these beams. When we're doing a top mount, you're going to want it centered on your beams to allow for that base plate. All right, so we can erase this stuff for the side mount. All right, now we have this for our top mount handrail. And now, because I got rid of that offset distance, it's going to be centered on this line and consequently centered on the beam. We do not want the post below the platform, so we put 0 again. And then I'm going to do a save as for top mount, so we make sure we get that saved in. And then we're going to select the line and pick away from the platform. And there we are, mounted, centered. Now, there is no base plate option in this version of CADWorx, so you're not going to see the base plate if you were to have top-mounted bolted pipe handrail. You're not going to see that base plate, but you know it shows at least where the generally where the post locations are. I would not use the handrail tool if you're going to manually specify post locations. Like I've seen it to where handrails have been drawn out to where the posts, every single post was dimensioned off. What you can do, however, is let's say there's a valve coming through here with a hand wheel and you need to make a cut in this. What I like to do is this. Let's say we got to have, a 2-foot cut. I'm going to offset this 12 inches and I'm going to break this line. I'm just doing a break, choosing the first point option, and then hitting at so that it doesn't go anywhere. So now I have 3 separate pieces. Okay. The reason for this is because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 handrails that are full height based off my 2 polylines here. Now I have a third polyline, or it can be just a regular line. I'm going to explode that. It can be a regular line. And what I'm going to do is make a third handrail, but this third handrail, I'm going to remove the top rail. So you can remove it. Select your line, and so I'm going to say yes. Cancel. Don't say yes. If you make changes and say yes to save, it's going to save it to whatever profile you have loaded. I'm going to say this as save as pipe top mount, and in parentheses I'm going to say omit top. That way I know this is like a half height handrail that I can always use later on. Select it and pick away from the platform. And now I've got a break in my handrail. But technically what I have are 3 sections. This is just a half height section. And I accomplished that by removing that top rail. You can remove and add whatever rails you want. If you want to add a rail back, you can add a rail back or add it at a custom height. Maybe we want to put a custom height for a rail, and instead of saying 3'7 1/4", maybe we want to go. Maybe we just want to bring that section down. 2'6", and say okay. And then you have that third rail right here. Now you'll notice something kind of goofy here. This is something to keep in mind. Whenever you do straight sections of handrail, I'm going to erase these other 2. It will always leave one side hanging over the edge. It's a fault of the program. It's not a fault in your setup. It just does it this way. So I'm going to explode like this polyline and use this one line to demonstrate that. I'll do a full height top mount and pick away from the platform, and you'll see it's got the same glitch where it extends past the last pipe or last post. So don't worry, it's not you if it does that on straight sections. But the moment you go and add some additional pieces, like when we had these polylines, you don't have that issue anymore. So we'll do the same thing, select, and look, no overhang here or no overhang there. Go figure. It's just the way it is. So that's it. That's your handrail. Tweak what you need to tweak according to your company standards. Play around with it and try to get it to work the way you need to. It can be tricky with angle handrail and these offsets and rotations. It can be really tricky, which is why I don't even bother with it. But I know a lot of companies do angle handrail because it's cheaper. So and it's easy to bolt up to structures and things of that nature. So with all these things, use it at your own discretion. But if it helps you out and makes it more efficient and faster for you to put handrails in, then by all means, go for it.